It's African Diaries on Channel Africa.
It is 2 minutes after 11 p.m. Central African time. Today we are joined by Willem, who is an entrepreneurial thinking expert known for helping leaders and organizations reframe challenges into opportunities. Now, we presented a challenge in the very first hour, the realities of AI. And as Africa stands at the crossroads of digital revolutions, digital intelligence and artificial intelligence offers an enormous potential. However, it also threatens a wide existing divide. Now, from broadband access to skills development, from local language inclusion to new business models, the way we think entrepreneurially will determine whether AI accelerates inequality or fuels prosperity. Together, today we will be exploring how African innovators, governments, and communities can close the digital divide and use AI as a tool for inclusive growth. Willem, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to African Diaries.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's start off by just gauging things from your vantage point, right? How do you navigate, or what are your thoughts and sentiments on the digital divide? I mean, before the idea was a smartphone was the dividing concept, right? So either you have a camera or you don't have a camera. It wasn't too deep. You had one social media platform that you needed to navigate, not seven, right? You had access to people more. After COVID, after the developments in technology, this divide has widened. What's your take on that?
Well, let's first understand what the digital divide is. You know, so many people talk about it, but what does it really mean?
Yeah.
And as we develop new technologies, it gets accepted in markets. In certain markets, it gets accepted quicker as a result of, is it a small country? How's the geography, etc., as well as the wealth of the country. So fire was a technology.
Okay. Yeah.
Then the telephone. That's when the digital divide. So now I could call people. I remember in the 80s you had to book an overseas call.
Oh.
You couldn't pick up, so you had to call a local exchange. They call that exchange. They connect you, and that's how you called overseas. And it was ludicrously expensive. Now you just pick up WhatsApp and you call your buddy and anywhere in the world. So it's what part of the population of Africa has good access to the latest technologies. In this instance, communication, internet. It could be business, communication, whatever the case may be, but the internet. And we're being left behind. So if we don't have people who can access the technology, but then also use the technology and simply become consumers of the technology and not participants in the technology, that is a very dangerous place to play. And I think in a previous interview I did state, I think the current, and this is my own perspective, the current digital divide, although very big, will be a small hairline crack in the floor of the canyon of the digital divide that's going to come as a result of artificial intelligence.
Sure. You said participants and consumers. Let's create the difference between the two.
So consumer is somebody who just watches YouTube and TikTok the whole day. They do nothing with it. It's a one-way street. Participants mean I'm reaching out, I'm conducting business, I'm using it to study, and it's a two-way street. But most youth that I've worked with, they would come to my class, sorry, I'm late, I didn't get the update because I don't have data. But then later in the class I ask, how many hours of YouTube do you watch a day? And they go like 3. Okay, so you could watch 3 hours of YouTube, but not this. And that's a big problem, is if we're only going to be consumers, you know, as the marketing expert previously said, well, then we're going to just get what's thrown at us. And we will start becoming like the rest of the world, and we will lose our identity.
Sure. Let's talk about linguistics, right? Cultural diversity. These are some things that are not factored into artificial intelligence. I think Kenneth rightfully stated that AI is trained in English and it stammers and it staggers in other languages. This is not just an African issue. This is across the globe. And so for those who want to be participants, those who are looking for an exchange, how do they integrate that reality into something that is actually beneficial for them as opposed to it being a problem?
The technology will pick up on that quite quickly. The acceleration of these models are phenomenal. So it will get those languages right sooner than later. In fact, I use Notebook LM a lot to do podcasts for me about research it did for me. And it used to be only English. And today I looked at it, and I looked at many languages, even had Afrikaans in it. And I'm like, do I really want to listen to this in my own language? Because I'm not going to understand what it says.
Yeah.
So yes, it's expanding. So I don't think it's a problem going forward, but you do have a very good point. People don't want to use services or necessarily participate if it's not in line with them. You know, we've spoken so many times as we need things in Africa for Africa.
Yeah.
Sure. And we will have to work as a continent, because Shella, there's a lot of stuff that's going on in the digital divide. You have the access gap, and you have a usage gap as well. And then you look at the skills gap and the affordability gap. So it's not just laying a fiber line and giving people access to it. 2024 report shows that although 710 million people in Africa live within the coverage area of a mobile network where they have internet, they do not use the internet. So the access gap is one thing, because in cities, African cities, the penetration is about close to 60%. But it's half of that in the rural areas. And our average broadband speed, or median speed in Africa, is about 2.5 megs. While globally it's about 5.5 megs. So it's double the speed internationally. And you can't really do much with 2.5 megs. I remember I was in Deep Slough trying to run Google Docs on a 2 meg line. It didn't work very well. So the access thing is one thing, and a lot of people are working at it. I was talking to a funder of a business the other day. They laid a 840 kilometer fiber line, and this company does fiber to the shack. I kid you not. It's 21 rand a week, and you get a 20 meg up and down line unlimited. That's it. Fiber to the shack. They can't stay ahead. So the access stuff is coming. If you look at Starlink, Starlink's coming up. The Kuiper satellite constellation is also coming up. Many people are building that. So internet access will become just accessible everywhere.
Yeah.
I think our biggest challenge is our usage gap.
Sure. That is a brilliant point you put out there. The voice there of Willem Gous, who is an entrepreneurial thinking expert, joining us this evening. We're tackling the reality of AI and its integration into the African continent. Of course, this is not overlooking the world's current standpoint, but also just the realities of a digital divide and how we can mitigate that and use it to our benefit. Willem, what's really interesting that you made mention of when you spoke about usage and affordability, I suppose affordability is also being tackled, right? You think of that 21 Rand per week context.
Yes and no.
Okay.
You still need a proper device to access it. And French client of mine and I we always have this conversation that I'm tired of people trying to make an affordable smartphone for Africa. We need to economically uplift Africa so that we can buy the smartphones that are available. Guys, stop giving us some watered down type of thing, and we need to, as a continent, uplift ourselves economically. But that is a big obstacle to buy a device to I mean, if you consider the cost of data, I think a gigabyte of data, 1 gig of data in an average African environment is about 2.4% of your monthly salary for most people. That's a lot of money. If you use 10 gigs, that's a quarter of your salary. So that's also what's holding people back. So affordability on that level is still there, and that fiber to the shack thing is addressing, but the devices are really prohibitive. And also the speeds that we have, and it's just accelerating. You have to understand, I think what people miss about artificial intelligence is we're moving into an era of cognitive abundance. Okay, so already your artificial intelligences that are out there, I think, have an IQ of 150 or 160. Okay, so it's very smart. Soon it'll be 300. So I can have somebody to the level of Einstein. I can have 1 million Einsteins in my pocket. I can instruct them to do things for me.
Yeah.
People are already positing the first one-man billion-dollar company. It's going to come. And where will Africa be in there?
And I suppose that brings us to our next question, usage. Because that divide is real. Not only do we not access, but there's a minority that accesses the internet and finds replacements. What are some of the job markets that we see will be dissolving in the next 5 years due to this?
Well, definitely anything that's repetitive. Accounting, bookkeeping, any type of number one use case that people currently use ChatGPT for is for advice and just talking to, unpacking your problems. So psychologists, coaches, advisors, all of this is going to disappear. Look at search engines. Do you use a search engine? Do you go to an AI nowadays? I just open an AI and I go like, let's look at this.
Yeah.
So that's also changing. So I think the outsourcing market is going to change. Lots of they think about 40 to 50% of white collar jobs will be automated in the next 5 years. I think it will be less. I think it's a bit doom and gloom. But I'd say about 30%. If you do physical labor, you're still safe for now.
So you're still safe for now. It is 15 minutes after 11 p.m. Central African time. That was the voice of entrepreneurial thinking expert. That is Willem Gous joining us this evening. We are looking at AI, the integration of AI into the African continent, specifically honing into the usage reality and how that is creating a major divide outside access and affordability. If you have your questions, send them through to WhatsApp. Find us on +27 6340 69126. You can also comment on that current YouTube live stream. Look at us using technology to benefit the station. Listen, more of this conversation when we get back. We're going to be delving into the second part, right? Because we don't want to just talk gloom and doom, or doom and gloom, if you will. We want to talk solutions. How do we maximize on the technology that is? How do we spread it across the continent and ensure that people are engaging technology? But also, what can you do today is the question.
When the sun goes down, we don't stop the talk. Channel Africa, the best nighttime radio.